You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. LSU did practice today, Thursday. They'll practice again Friday. No media availability Thursday or Friday, but LSU will wrap up fall camp on Saturday in Tiger Stadium with a full scrimmage. And the media is invited to attend the scrimmage. So that's going to actually be pretty cool that we'll get to go watch a full-scale scrimmage, something we got to do a couple of times last year as well, once on the practice field and once in Tiger Stadium. So we will have a much better sense of how things look when they get into more game-like scenarios on Saturday. And, of course, we'll give you a full report on that. But I wanted to take the opportunity, though, now that they are essentially through the fall camp portion, the preseason portion, because look, classes begin on Monday, and that's when LSU is full bore toward Florida State. I mean, that's basically like a 2-week preparation for your opener when you start to work on implementing game plan and getting ready for Florida State. So I wanted to take the opportunity today, since we don't have a practice report, to kind of take account of what we've seen so far in fall camp, and then also kind of look at the season. And our buddy Chris Lowe over at ESPN.com did a piece today where he looked at everybody in the top 25, their realistic best case and worst case scenario. So, like, what's your ceiling, what's your floor? And it's interesting because a year ago, I was probably one of the way that I termed my expectation for LSU a year ago. And remember, LSU's projected win total opened in Vegas a year ago at 6.5. I think when the season started, you might have found some 7.5. But basically, Vegas was looking at LSU as a 6-6, maybe a 7-5 football team. Okay, and there were a lot of people around LSU, fans, et cetera, who had grander expectations. Remember what context matters so much. I know I say that a lot, but you got to remember what Brian Kelly inherited. Okay. I mean, you were coming off back-to-back 500 football seasons. You had half of a roster, essentially. It was a steep climb. And there were not many people high on LSU a year ago. The narrative about Brian Kelly was laughing about him dancing and the family thing and all that stuff. And it didn't start great. Remember, they lost to Florida State, and then they kind of caught fire later. But my feeling on LSU a year ago, as I said, was I thought their ceiling was lower than most LSU fans would like, but their floor is higher than what most national people are saying. I said I thought their ceiling a year ago was 9-3, and their floor was 7-5. There were a lot of people saying LSU was going to go 5-7, 4-8. I just didn't see that as a possibility. There was still talent. You had a veteran quarterback. You had a really good coach. So I didn't see that floor being that low. And of course, I said, look, split the difference. Let's say 8-4, which is where I picked them. They ended up going 9-3. So where might they look this year? I'll play the ceiling and the floor game already. Now, I've already given you my prediction on the season. Okay, I've told y'all that I think this team goes 11-1. Everyone asks, what's the one game? I don't know. I don't know what the one game is. I just know it's really hard to go undefeated. LSU could lose the opener. They could stub their toe in a game like at home against Auburn. Just like last year, no one really anticipated LSU losing to a 4-win Texas A&M team, but they did. The SEC's hard. LSU could lose at Bama. Somewhere along the way, I think they'll drop one, but I still think they're going to go 11-1. I think this team will be in the playoff. Chris Lowe gave a best case, worst case. The best case, he said, was making the college football playoff semifinal. He does not think that LSU can get to the championship game, but the best case being the semifinal. The worst case, so floor, he has them at 8-5. And the losses, he says, Florida State, Ole Miss, Bama, Texas A&M, and losing in the bowl would be the worst case scenario. I'm actually going to go a little different there. So obviously, being what I've told you what I think my ceiling is for this team is what I think they'll do is 11-1. The ceiling is national championship. The ceiling is undefeated. And that is realistic. I'll remind you, if you look at point spreads, or initial point spreads for this team, LSU is favored in every single game except the road game at Bama. That's not to say they're going to go 11-1, win them all except the Bama game. I don't know how the season's going to play out, but the point is you can look at that schedule and say LSU is going to be favored in every game they play except one. And that one is against a team that you beat a year ago that has major quarterback questions. That's replacing both of its coordinators. So, yeah, I mean, 12-0 is completely, ceiling. Yes, this team could win all of their games. That is a possible outcome for this team. Floor, and I'm not going to go into what the bowl record may be, right? Because you don't even know who you're going to play in a bowl game or where you're going to play in all the scenarios of unfold. I think the realistic floor for this team is 7-5. I'm not telling you I think they go 7-5. I'm telling you that's a realistic floor. Could LSU lose to Florida State? Yep. Could they drop one of the road games to the Mississippi schools? Yep. Could LSU lose at home to Auburn? We've talked about this before. I think Auburn today announced Peyton Thorne as its starter. Hugh Freeze is a great coach. His previous jobs has had dramatic turnarounds, maybe none more so than when he took the Ole Miss job and inherited a dumpster fire from Houston Nutt and got that team into a bowl game year one back in 2012. That Auburn team, by the way, when they come to Baton Rouge, they will be coming off a bye. LSU will be coming off of back-to-back road SEC games. That could be the spot on the schedule where you circle and go trap game. Could LSU lose to Bama? Yes. Could they lose one of Florida or A&M at home? Yes. So if you split the Mississippi schools, you split Florida A&M, you lose at home to Auburn, you lose to Bama, you lose to Florida State, you're 7-5. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, to be very clear. But if you're talking about everything goes wrong, what's the floor? I think that's it. I think that's the bottom for this team would be a 7-5 season, which would be a massive disappointment. But if you find yourself in a whole bunch of close games and they don't go your way, sometimes that's how it works out. I'll remind you, that happened to Brian Kelly back in 2016 at Notre Dame. In 2015, they won 10 games. They were 10-3. In 2016, the bottom fell out. They went 4-8. And that was the worst season he had in his entire coaching career. And Notre Dame lost a handful of games by less than the touchdown. It was just they blew fourth quarter leads and they let late leads get away and they lost a whole bunch of close games at the end and they went 4-8. And by the way, the next year they went 10-3, then 12-1, then 11-2. So they went 10 wins, 4 wins, 10, 12, 11. So you say, okay, which one is the outlier? That was the outlier, but outliers exist. So, and oh, by the way, that Notre Dame team in 2016 was preseason number 10 in the country. So it was a preseason top 10 team that went 4-8. It happens. Look, it happened to Texas A&M last year. They were preseason top 10. They went 5-7. So again, not predicting that for LSU, but if you're looking at what is the floor, bottom, worst case, I think for this LSU team, the bottom is 7-5. So, but I've given you my pick. I've said it for a while now. I'm comfortable in that pick and what I think they'll be, and we'll roll with it. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.